Hello, I'm Esther Gitu. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. A meeting of leaders from the Intergovernmental Authority on Development in Uganda seeks to defuse a growing diplomatic crisis between Ethiopia and Somalia and the Sudan war. VOA'S Peter Clottey speaks with the Commonwealth Secretary General Patricia Scotland, who is attending the NonAligned Movement Summit in Kampala, Uganda. And in our entertainment report, Music Time in Africa host Heather Maxwell tells us more about African artists scheduled to tour the US in the spring. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. A meeting between the heads of state from the 8-member Intergovernmental Authority on Development has wrapped up in Uganda. The leaders discussed ways to defuse a growing diplomatic crisis between Ethiopia and Somalia and the ongoing war in Sudan. VOA's Paul Ndiho has more.
Djibouti's President Ismail Omar Guelleh says that mediating the conflict in Sudan calls for a bold leadership. The 42nd IGAD meeting also focused on the political tensions in the Red Sea region, a dispute between Ethiopia and Somalia in regard to Somaliland.
We convene today under a sense of urgency as our region grapples with challenging times, be it the devastating conflict in our sister nation, Sudan, or the recent developments in relations with Somalia and Ethiopia. These challenges necessitate bold leadership.
A communique issued by the leaders at the end of the one-day summit in Uganda urged the parties to engage in constructive dialogue to help to end the deteriorating situations.
The war in Sudan, if you look at our communique, we describe it as an unjust war.
The Sudanese government has suspended ties with the regional bloc. Meanwhile, IGAD is trying to mediate an end to the fighting between the Sudanese army and a rival powerful paramilitary force. Sudan accuses IGAD of violating its sovereignty by inviting the paramilitary leader to the summit. The Sudanese army is headed by General Abdel Fattah Burhani, and the Rapid Support Forces are commanded by General Muhammad Hamdan Dagalo. They have been fighting for control of Sudan since April 2023. The meeting was attended by Kenyan President William Ruto, Somali's President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, South Sudanese President Salva Kiir, Musa Faki, the Africa Union Commission Chairperson, and envoys of the European Union, United States, United Nations, and the Arab League. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Prosecutors on Friday confirmed that Israeli President Isaac Herzog is the subject of criminal complaints during his visit to the World Economic Forum in Davos, as Israel finds itself accused of committing war crimes in Gaza. The Office of the Swiss Attorney General says the criminal complaints will be examined according to the usual procedure, adding that it would contact the Swiss Foreign Ministry to examine the question of immunity of the individual concerned. The Swiss Attorney General's office did not disclose details on who had lodged the complaints. Spokespeople for Israel's government and Foreign Ministry did not immediately reply to the requests for comment. The 54th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum wraps up Saturday, and for more on the summit, I'm joined from Nairobi, Kenya by Edgar Githua. He is a professor of international relations, researcher, and security expert with the U.S. International University. Professor Githua, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you so much.
Now, this year's theme is rebuilding trust, with the aim of reinforcing consistency and transparency among leaders. Given the numerous conflicts around the world, is this achievable?
Yeah, thanks, Esther. Your question is simple and complex at the same time, because at the World Economic Forum, as world leaders and business leaders and political leaders are meeting, the world is still embroiled in very many conflicts all over the world. To mention a few, the numerous conflicts in Africa. We have the Israel-Hamas conflict still going on, Russia, Ukraine. Rebuilding trust is not as easy as it sounds. It is a step in the right direction, and of course we welcome it from a diplomatic and peace and security perspective. But the reality is, Esther, that countries will always act in their best interests. So if countries feel that their interests are threatened at any given time or on any given issue, they will not really think about rebuilding trust and working with each other. They will still try and use whatever means necessary at their disposal to achieve whatever interests are threatened.
Professor,
so rebuilding trust is
it's going to be a kind of okay. So now we know that several African leaders are attending the summit. They have also addressed the forum, including Kenya's President William Ruto, Nigeria's Bola Tinubu, and others. But what gains really can Africa expect out of this forum?
The forum gives Africa a chance to talk about, number one, climate change issues, climate financing, trying to talk about the deficit in terms of trade between the global north and the global south. So Africa can hope at least to attract investments and to just put out a voice there for fair play in global economics. That's exactly what Africa would be pushing for and should be pushing for in such a forum.
Now, very quickly, Professor, there's a big focus on the use of AI. Of course, there are some concerns about the security issues surrounding the use of AI. But in what ways can Africa tap the use of AI effectively for the development of the continent?
Yeah, in terms of things like medicine, AI can really help Africa in terms of diagnosis, in terms of medicine, thinking about manufacturing and production. So AI is still a new field, but Africa could actually relatively gain in terms of agriculture, issues to do with agriculture, the medical field, for me, and food security. Those are the three main areas that Africa should be aiming to benefit from the use of AI.
In terms of the youth contribution from the continent, what do you see as very important and key for the youth to be able to engage and kind of, help inject development in the continent of Africa?
Okay, I'll answer this question by piggybacking on what you asked previously. The youth now can leverage on this new technology, AI. Universities within Africa should make that part of the curriculum in trying to see what kind of new innovation that the youth all over Africa can utilize in trying to just advance the continent's agenda in terms of manufacturing, development, the medical field, and innovation. So that's how the African youth can tap into this new technology to just drive economic and development forward on the African continent.
And quickly on security issues, the conflicts are affecting Africa. We see DRC, Sudan, and a few others. What can they do in terms of being consistent and building that trust?
African leaders, the NonAligned Movement in Uganda that ended today is a step in the right direction, rebuilding trust among African leaders and from a regional bloc perspective. So, for example, let's have IGAD settle its own issues among its leaders. Let's have the East African community, because we have also had issues between Burundi and Rwanda, DRC and Rwanda and Burundi and all that. So in all these regional blocs that we have in Africa, let's rebuild trust locally before we think about rebuilding trust intercontinentally. So in my view, small baby steps first, and then globally we can have the world actually coming together and working towards the same direction. So Africans first deal with their own small cocoons in their own small regional blocks, rebuild trust with one another, and solve issues diplomatically before we move out of the continent.
Professor Githua, many thanks for your insight. Edgar Githua is a professor of international relations, researcher, and a security expert with the U.S. International University in Nairobi. VOA'S Peter Clottey spoke to Patricia Scotland, the Commonwealth Secretary General, on a wide range of issues regarding the non-aligned movement going on in Uganda.
This conference is all about leaving no one behind, and particularly focusing on the tangled knot of complex problems and challenges that are primarily taking place in the global south. And many of our developing countries, as you know, have made considerable progress to improve the well-being of their people, but they are now bearing the brunt of a myriad of crises, with the lingering effects of COVID-19, the soaring debt, the inflation pressures, and the intensifying climate extremes and disasters. And the absence of adequate international support forces them to commit more and more of their limited resources to protecting their people from these crises, which further compound their challenges, eroding hard-earned progress on poverty, inequality, and development. And it's pushing many of our countries right to the edge. So to tackle these overlapping challenges about which we have spoken on a number of occasions, we need more cooperation and solidarity than ever before. And the voice of the non-aligned movement is essential. And the Commonwealth stands as a trusted partner in achieving our shared vision for a peaceful, just, and sustainable future for all. And you know that of our 56 countries, 21 of which are in Africa, they make up 42 of the members of the non-aligned movement. So we have countries from our 5 regions who are participating. And these crises, this tangled knot of crises which has been left as lingering effects of COVID and climate, means that the debt burden on our countries is getting heavier and heavier.
Now, talking about money, the Secretariat has been calling what some people say the disproportionate impact of economic and environmental challenges on development Commonwealth countries. Talk to me briefly about this concern.
Well, number one, we've been saying we now need a different approach, just making an assessment to say, if you've got fiscal rectitude, your GDP will rise and you'll be able to meet all your sustainable development goals. We know that that is not so. These exogenous shocks that we've suffered, the climate crises, the COVID-19, then followed by the disruption of our food security as a result of what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, and now what's happening in Palestine, and all these exogenous shocks are out with what most of the countries could have expected, and not caused by them either. So we have said we need to change the approach we have. We have to understand innate vulnerability, which is not predicated on an act or an omission caused by you. These are things to which you are subject, and that vulnerability has to be taken into account when they're talking about the terms upon which you get money by way of loan or you get overseas development aid.
That was Patricia Scotland, the Commonwealth Secretary General, speaking to VOA'S Peter Clottey. It's time for the Africa Cup of Nations update, and joining me now from Ivory Coast is VOA's Mukbil Yabaro. Hello, Mukbil. Tell us what matches are being played today.
Hey, Esther, how you doing? Today, the first game was Cape Verde versus Mozambique. Cape Verde won decisively 3-0 against Mozambique, and they are at the top of Group B at the moment.
And Nigeria beat Ivory Coast 1-0, and Egypt and Ghana drew 2-2 yesterday. How did fans react to this?
I think the Ivorian fans weren't necessarily too pleased about having lost to Nigeria. And then the Ghanaian fans felt as though they should have really beat Egypt, especially because superstar Mo Salah went down in the first half. At the moment, we don't know what the update is on his injury, but he is hurt. And they should have capitalized on that with 2 goals from Mohamed Kudus.
We see a little bit more of fans in the stadium. Did the ticketing issue get fixed?
That's a great question, Esther. We're not too sure, but, having seen the shots and images from inside multiple stadiums across the country, it seems as though they have fixed the issue and allowing the fans to get inside. Inside the Egypt versus Ghana game, it looked to me as if it was almost max capacity. It was literally nowhere to sit. So that's a good sign because the players also want to play in a full stadium. So they got that with Egypt and Ghana yesterday.
Now, Senegal and Cameroon will clash shortly. In the second round here of the game, what can we expect? What are your thoughts there, Mukbil, on this game?
Senegal are the defending champions of AFCON. They played tremendously well in their first game with the 3-0 win. So I think for them, it's just keeping pace and doing the exact same things that they did in the first game. Cameroon needs a little bit more because they drew in their first match, so they want to win. But that game will not be in Abidjan. It'll be in Yamoussoukro. Some of my colleagues made it out there, so I'll be getting an update about that later on today.
Mukbil, thank you very much for your reporting. VOA's Mukbil Yabaru reporting live for us from Abidjan, Ivory Coast. Still to come, efforts to end child marriages in Zambia. Stay with us.
Substance abuse, including alcohol and illicit drugs, negatively impact those who abuse them, their families and society, often with serious health and financial consequences. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we will discuss women surviving alcoholism and substance abuse. We will also hear from women and medical specialists. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
In other news, the African Development Bank says that all of its international staff is returning to Ethiopia 1 month after it withdrew their employees following an assault on staff members by government security forces. The bank's normal operations in Ethiopia will resume after bank president Akinwumi Adesina was assured by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed that its staff will receive security. Guinea security forces raided a journalists' rally on Thursday and made several arrests in the suburb of Conakry during a protest against media restrictions. Journalists had gathered at Press House in preparation for a day of demonstrations against restrictions on press freedom and internet access. And Ugandan security forces briefly detained opposition leader and former presidential candidate Bobi Wine on Thursday when police surrounded his residence ahead of a planned protest. Opposition politicians had planned demonstrations against the poor condition of the roads in Uganda. The United Nations says about 1.7 million Zambians under the age of 18 are married, and more than 400,000 were 15 or younger when they got married. Kathy Short reports on attempts to end child marriage.
19-year-old Natalia Tembo was rescued from child marriage by her mother after she got pregnant in 9th grade. Her father set up the marriage but has since passed away. Upon his death, Natalia's mother was able to remove her from the marriage and enroll her back in school.
It feels great to go back to school, as I had stopped when I was pregnant. Although I feel different with my friends, as I have a child and they don't have. But it's fine. I'm supposed to be in school.
30-year-old Landa Sodala Mulima advocates against child marriages. She ran away at age 15 when her uncle tried to arrange a marriage for her.
I studied insurance and I'm working with Madison Life Insurance. So if I was married when I was much younger, I was not going to know the worthy or the true meaning of education. I'm able to work. I'm able to buy anything that I want because I went back to school.
Barnabas Mwanza is the child protection specialist at UNICEF one of the UN agencies working to reduce child marriages in Zambia.
Zambia is among the highest rate of the highest rate of child marriage in sub-Saharan Africa. So currently we are 29%.
Child marriage is a formal or informal union involving a person under 18. Most countries view it as a violation of international rights. Recently, Zambia passed a law called the Children's Code Act. One of its provisions is a prohibition on child marriage, and since its passage, the Zambian non-profit Families and Nations says 1,000 child brides have been withdrawn from their marriages and taken back to school. The group also says that child marriage rates have declined in the past year. Angela Chomba Kawandami is the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services.
The government has enacted the Children's Code Act number 12 of 2022. This ensures the protection and well-being of children in Zambia.
But Zambia, in effect, has two legal systems. One system is based on English law, and the other customary laws, which are based on the different traditions of Zambia's 73 ethnic groups. While Zambian law sets the minimum age for marriage at 21 years, some customary laws allow child marriage with parental consent starting at the age of puberty. To solve the problem, the government recently introduced a bill in Parliament that would supersede customary law and make all child marriages illegal and punishable in court. Currently, a child in Zambia is legally defined as any person below the age of 16. Kathy Short, VOA News, Lusaka, Zambia.
It's time for Entertainment Report, and joining us now is Heather Maxwell, host of VOA's Music Time in Africa radio program. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Esther. Hello, everyone. A lot of African artists are on tour right now all over the world, but we are going to talk about who is in the U.S. now and over the next couple months. Jackson Mvunganyi, host of Red Carpet, you just saw him, on the radio show Up Front, joins me. How you doing, Jackson?
Hello, Heather. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
It's
Happy
good to be here with you.
Yes, it's great to see you. So let's talk about the first artist. He's a Belgian-Moroccan singer. His name is Distinct, and he starts his North American tour on January 25th. Now, he begins in D.C.
Right. DC,
and then New York, then Canada.
Absolutely. D.C. down the street, actually, Union Stage.
Yeah.
D.C. is actually a melting pot of cultures. We have a lot of Francophonies, people from North Africa, from, French backgrounds. And so we know that he's going to fill up his venue.
Oh, yeah, he is. And then after that, he's going to be in New York, then he's going to be in Canada.
Absolutely. It's a busy season for him, all the way up to June.
Oh,
yes.
Well, do you know that in the past year, he's released, I don't know, about 10 music videos. I think it's 8 of them have reached over 50 million views.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm not surprised. I mean, from Gims to Daju and many other Francophone artists, we've seen such a rise of artists from that region, whether it's from Belgium, from France, from Francophone countries.
True.
So there's a very big demographic of listeners, an audience for him.
Yeah, there really is. He really had his breakthrough with that music video called Ghazali.
Yes, Ghazali, great music video.
That topped
really
the charts.
enjoyed it. Yes.
It topped the charts in like a dozen countries.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, he's just awesome. Can't wait to see him. Also, he was the North African artist, awarded Best North African Artist at the Trace Awards in 2020.
Wow. Yeah. Big future for him.
Big future.
Yes.
You going to see the show?
Oh, absolutely. I can't miss it.
Yeah. All right. So on March 9th, here's the second one.
Yeah.
This music festival called Rolling Cocoa happens again in Washington, D.C.
Rolling Cocoa.
Rolling Cocoa. So I love the name.
I love the name too.
And it features.
Does it have anything to do with Ghana, maybe?
How'd you know? Could be Ivory Coast too.
Maybe Ivory Coast. True.
But no, it's Ghana. It features all Ghanaian artists: Stonebwoy, Black Sheriff, R2Bs, Kidi, Kamido, Sefa.
Top talent.
It's just going to be Kwesi Arthur. Man, there's so many people.
Absolutely. All big top talent of in Ghana. It will be nice to see. I think this is comes. Last year they had a party in the park, which was a festival.
Yes, I was there.
Sarkodie was there, and others. I think that was kind of testing out the waters to see how it would do if they brought like a whole big group of artists. It's nice that they have a combination of, you know, old school, new school, high life, hip hop artists from Ghana.
Absolutely.
Ghana has one of the most vibrant music industries on the continent. Really, we talk about Nigeria a lot, but we never talk about Ghana as much. But really, they laid the foundation for some of the things that we see right now going on in the African music business.
They did. It's true. And one of my favorites is going to be there. Well, two, Stonebwoy.
Stonebwoy,
and Black Sheriff.
Yes, Black Sheriff. Oh, yeah, he's killing it.
I can't wait to see Black Sheriff. He's going to be amazing. All right, so anything else you would like to say about this maiden edition of Rolling Cocoa?
Listen, I expect it to fill up. You know, because even though it is Ghanaian, we know DC, again, melting pot of African cultures. A lot of people from East Africa, West Africa, North Africa are going to attend this. And it's just looking at the lineup. Yeah, it's also English. Absolutely.
A little easier for people here in DC.
So it's going to be a nice festival.
Okay, number 3. Can't wait to talk about her. Tyla.
Yes.
So she kicks off the U.S. leg of her tour in April. And, you know, she just blew onto the scene only, in 2022 with that song Getting Late. And then, of course, Water is now everywhere.
Tyla is having a moment.
I can't keep my eyes off her.
I have to tell you this.
She's just...
Fun fact about Tyla's Water viral moment started in Kigali, Rwanda.
What?
Actually, yes, when she was performing, this whole idea of getting the water bottle, pouring it on her back, which is the thing that really propelled that song to mega superstardom.
So you want to make...
We want to take a little bit of credit to it. You know, but Tyla has broken a lot of records, entering at the Billboards at number 67. First time in 55 years that a South African has done it. Last time somebody did it was Huma Sekela.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, this kid is just starting out. She's only, what, 21 years old?
She's 21. And, you know, she's rated number 150 in Spotify's world music.
Wow. Has 1 billion views on TikTok.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, listen.
Well, she's
just starting out.
Her voice is great.
Her new album just, you know, dropping. Beautiful voice. Visually, you know. I mean,
I can't wait to see what else she brings us in the future.
Absolutely.
Okay, so these are just a few of the African artists who will be gracing the U.S. stages. Jackson, do you have any other people that you know are coming?
I don't know yet, but I know this is going to be a busy year. I expect Burna Boy to be back in Washington, D.C. His U.S. tour is happening this year. I know Ashake is going to, you know, many others from the Afrobeat genre will definitely be coming through the U.S.
We're going to have a good time. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me today, Jackson. That's our entertainment report for this week. Esther, now back to you.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Jackson. Be sure to join Heather Maxwell's entertainment report every Friday right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us in Washington, have a great weekend.